All sit down, please. I have the pleasure to introduce Cristiano Giovando from Humanitarian OpenStreetMap, and he will be talking about OpenStreetMap Analytics. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Buongiorno. Bonjour. Yeah, we're talking about analytics, or what's the stats for OpenStreetMap. And this morning I was putting together this map, just trying to point out where I'm from, where I'm based, and then realized we don't really have a map of mappers, do we? So maybe a hack for Monday, put together at least a map of who's here today at the conference. Anyway, so I started working with Humanitarian OpenStreetMap last year on a project around imagery. Imagery is very important to OSM. And the project that I worked on is OpenAerial Map. If you want to learn more about OSM, I'm assuming many of you probably know about Humanitarian OpenStreetMap, but just to give you a quick overview and why it's important, and why analytics are important for OSM, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what we do. We do disaster response mapping, we do humanitarian mapping, and we train people on the ground to work with OSM and create free public maps. The main tool that we use is called the Tasking Manager, where we select an area of interest and we split it up and we coordinate mappers around a mechanical Turk type of tool, where we split the task and each volunteer maps a piece, and then at the end we have a complete map. The other thing that we do, as I mentioned, we work on the ground collecting information that cannot be extracted from imagery. And so we train people to do that, and we also train the trainers who will become the local leaders in OpenStreetMap communities. If you want to learn more about OSM, tomorrow at 9:30 our director, Tyler, will be giving a talk around what we do. And so you can attend that and learn about it. The other half of my day job is with the GFDRR, a group at the World Bank, where we work on several projects around the world, again using OpenStreetMap tools, working with government to start open data programs, and many times, both with HOT and GFDRR, with OpenDRI, we are asked questions about what is the completeness of the map. Is the map good? Is the data that you're mapping, that we're mapping, covering the entire area that we need the map for? Are there any gaps? Because maybe there are clouds in imagery when the map was originally created by tracing imagery. So we started thinking and come up with questions. And last year, HOT also decided to join the efforts around the Sustainable Development Goals and help communities to map in an effort to achieve some of these Sustainable Development Goals. And again, more questions came up. How can we measure the impact of our work? How can we measure if we really achieve these goals? And so there are tools around the community which are already extracting this metadata information about the OpenStreetMap database. Here are some, like the Missing Map Leaderboards, the OSM Changesets, and Tag Info. These are really great tools, awesome tools that really give you insights on what's happening behind the map, or what are the numbers behind the map. But we wanted to visualize some of this information on a map. And so we started thinking, the nice thing of working with OSM and HOT is really that you can get online and immediately start talking to people in all different time zones. And so we had some discussion last year came up with ideas of what we wanted to do, and then we found an opportunity to create a prototype of what we had been thinking to give some answers to these questions. So we applied for a small Knight Foundation prototype fund, and we were awarded, and so earlier this year we started development. And again, in the spirit of most of the work that we do, I mean, all of the work that we do at HOT, all of the tools that we build, they're all open source. Communication is open through open chats like IRC, Gitter, and so we started building the tool. Thanks to a very smart developer that might be in this room. Martin, are you here? There's Martin right there. In less than a month, the ideas that we had became reality. We came together, we started thinking around the design. We wanted to make something really, really easy to use so that government officials, responders, and journalists can really go to a place and simply see what is the coverage of the data. Are there any gaps? Was the map updated recently, or was it is the map old? So in just 1 month, as I said, from March to April 2016, we built it. And this is what it looks like. Now I'm gonna go through some of the functionalities that we built in. So the main and the first thing that you'll see when you go to OSM Analytics, and I encourage you not to go right now because the connection is pretty overwhelmed at the moment, so take turns. But as you can see, you can start from the entire world and zoom in to street level, to building level in this case, and see exactly the density and then the individual building over a spatial map, but also over time. So if you look at the bottom, you can see that there's a graph that shows, for example, in this case, is the entire world, and it shows the density of buildings. And you can quickly get a number, a total summary of how many buildings we have. We're pretty close to 200 million buildings. And you can see over time what is the distribution, or I guess the last time each building has been edited. This is pretty useful because it tells you, for example, there are a lot of buildings in Europe. Probably there's no more buildings to be mapped in Germany, right? But there's still many places that, they're not so mapped as in others. And you can look at this both globally, locally. As I said, you can zoom in by region. You can define your own region and really start to get some insights on the distribution of data. You can also look at the time map as a way to detect specific events. This is Nepal, and that is 2015 when HOT activated for the response to the earthquakes in April. And you can see it. You can see it on the map, and you can see it on the scale of the time there at the bottom. Another interesting things that you can start to look into a time scale and then a visual representation on the map are the effects of some of the mapping campaigns that we do with HOT, where this is Dar es Salaam, and there's been an incredible effort by the local community and some of the HOT team people there to map all of Dar es Salaam over the past 3, 4, 5 years. And you can see some of the campaigns by highlighting. Yeah, I didn't mention it, but you can actually select within the time slider, as well as in the map, the period that you're interested in, and it will automatically highlight on the map in blue what you're looking at. So in this case, we're looking at sometimes in September 2015, where there was a campaign dedicated to map that specific word. There are other interesting things that you can see by highlighting maps, highlighting features on the timeslider. In this case, we're going back to 2010 when the OpenStreetMap community responded to the Haiti earthquake. And you can see by selecting the specific days right after the earthquake and look at roads in this case that haven't been touched, that haven't been edited since then. This is pretty useful to answer some questions around quality or potential quality of that information. That information hasn't changed since 2010, could be fed into other tools to check on the accuracy of those specific features that haven't been touched in over 6 years. Another feature that we built into this tool are some quick statistics, some quick numbers. As I mentioned before, we're close to 200 million buildings in the world, and we are close to 124 trips to the moon of roads mapped in OpenStreetMap. That's quite a lot. I don't know how much in miles or kilometer, but you can click on that arrow and it will show you. You can also zoom in to street level, as I said, and you can look at facts like some of the organizers are probably here at the event. In the past couple of months, made some quick fixes to the buildings within the university. These are all facts that you can infer from just looking at the metadata, just looking at the information in the database. Another feature that we wanted to include that was useful to us is also to understand some of the quality of the map. What is the level of experience represented in some of the features that are being mapped? So in this case, if you switch to another tool within the interface, you can look at the level of experience. Each of the features that are highlighted in this case are features that have been created by beginner mappers. And so we're in London, Hyde Park. For some reason, the trails in Hyde Park have been mapped by new mappers. But that can give you some good insights when you do quick response activation, you have new mappers and you want to maybe validate some of the work that is done by some of these new mappers. And of course, we wanted to include the before and after feature. This is always very useful to show the work that was done by the OSM community. In this case, we're looking at the earthquake in Italy last month, and you can really see how these areas that were not on the map, which I'm surprised, in just a few days were completely mapped by the Italian community. And here, again, we're looking at the before and after for the university here, and we can see how in 2011 the campus was pretty much all done. But after that, there have been more additions of all the buildings for the rest of the city. How does it work? Martin, if you want to learn more, you can catch up with Martin or meet us on Sunday. We're going to have a BOF on OSM Analytics. But this is pretty much the stack that we use in the background, in the back end. And we have these routines running every day so that the data is updated constantly every day. It's pushed into some vector tiles, a way to store data efficiently, and then that information is put on the map through a JavaScript interface. We have a lot of ideas, a lot of questions that we still want to answer. I'm sure everyone here wants to understand more of the data in OpenStreetMap. We have seen some really interesting work done by some of our colleagues. There's some machine learning algorithms that can now detect buildings or areas of populated areas. There's already a population data set that, for example, could be used to create an index of the population distribution and use that as a reference, for example, to understand if the buildings that we map really represent the distribution of population. That way, we can start to think whether there might be some gaps in the map because of what the machine detected and what has been mapped into OpenStreetMap. Other interesting work has been done around user contributions. This set of analysis done using pretty much the same stack, the same type of approach that we use in OSM Analytics, was done by Jennings over the summer, and we are planning to integrate some of these new features into OSM Analytics. But again, anyone here, I talked to people already yesterday. We were at the HOT Summit, the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap Summit. We talked about ideas, so please go to the repo website, look at it, and join us on Sunday. We're going to have a BOF, and we really want to get your ideas on what's going to be next, integrate some of your research work, and really, we built this as a platform for anyone to use, for anyone to replicate, to fork, and give us daily insights into the OSM map. And finally, I just want to thank you, because this really shows through doing this work. I've been in OpenStreetMap for over 10 years now. I've always been telling everyone about it, advocating for it, but through this tool, I really can show to people how good and awesome the mappers in the community is. So thank you. Do I take questions now, or?
I think agent's going to help
Okay.
point out some questions.
If there's anyone with questions, I can go with the first person.
Hello. Thank you very much for your tool. I am Jean-Louis, working for a French local government, a community of cities. And my big dream in your tool is that if we could also see rivers, ditch, and all this, because more and more we will have challenges to fight floods. And it is, I think, really important to know how the roads are done next to rivers or ditch. And if we have to prevent disasters, mostly when there are a lot of water, the roads are impacted. And your tool is really important to be used to next thematics. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I perfectly agree. There's been discussions about integrating more elements of the map, so rivers in this case, and it's just a matter of time. We started working on it as a prototype, but the workflow would be exactly the same. So I welcome your idea, and I'll put it on top of the list for the next features that we're going to include.
More questions?
Yeah, this is really interesting. I'm wondering, have you thought about how to determine if certain tags are complete in regions? How do you decide if you've got all the schools, or you've got all the parks, or you've got all the gas stations, for instance, in Turkmenistan?
Yeah, that's a good question. And actually, one of the recent ideas, which you can see here at the bottom, is really to understand more about whether the map is organic, is built by local mappers underground versus being traced. So for example, in this case, we're suggesting to include features that would indicate that the map has been mapped on the ground, like street names, where you can only see it if you're there. But yeah, to answer your question, sorry. Yeah, to answer your question, we have, sorry, I don't remember your question. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the way that the current worker works is to pass the input data from QA tiles into a function. So anything you can build into that function that then spits out individual tiles by a certain analysis that you want to do. If you can convert that question into an analysis, if it's spatial, for example, there's this awesome turf library that you can, for example, calculate spatial relationship within specific areas. So if we want to look at completeness of tags, again, we can include that information from the database and just convert it into a function, which I'm not an expert about, but Martin and others might give you some insights.
So you have to have a number. You have to have a number to compare against to put into your system.
Yeah. Or if you want to write that function, please.
Thank you, Cristiano. So I see here that they've added demos and documentation, and I kind of have a feature request, which I promise I'll add in GitHub. Comes from a research working group that we had yesterday, in that somebody said, I want to understand, I know it's a powerful data set, but I want to understand it. And he said, I do research on extractive mining. And so he said, what I'd be interested in is a front page that had narratives like, here's what government needs, here's a business example, here's a civil society example. So just even like 4 or 5 use cases on one of the tabs might be useful to help people surface. Because knowing where all the mines are in West Africa, knowing that you can use OSM for that might help that small NGO or that researcher. Now we know that as OSM users and as this community, but someone who's trying to understand how to use it, this tool activates it in a way that baking soda activates cake. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. I think it's around the fourth top priority up there, where we really wanted to build examples around thematic ideas. So let's do it. Any other question?
So, awesome job, right? Really, really impressive. So yesterday, during the Hot Summit, Heather had mentioned kind of maybe a tool for sort of mentoring or pairing people up. Have you looked at kind of being able to run analytics against individual users where you see, hey, this person is always making mistakes when it comes to the correct relationships of turning lanes and that sort of stuff, and then maybe using that to say, hey, would you like counseling or help, or we will partner you up with that? I mean, this looks like it would fit that bill.
I think that would be really useful to help with onboarding, with quality checks. So definitely something that this workflow, especially for the back-end crunching, could definitely help. I don't know if we want to display it on a map necessarily. Maybe this would just feed into a system that alerts or sends a message to some of the experience mapper saying, hey, look, someone would need your help. Can you help? But yeah, potentially all of that could also be visualized. The same way that some of the Pascal's tools show the footprint of where you have worked. Similarly, the same way that we show like the level of experience, by using that information, we can put it on the map. Yeah.
Hi, Cristiano. Just one short question. If you want to like forking or like mirror this OSM Analytics into our own server, is there any like server requirements that is so that at least our server wouldn't crash when running this?
In terms of backend
yes.
processing power?
Yes.
Right now it's fairly medium machine. Martin can confirm. Hosted in the cloud, it was just quick and efficient for us to use a machine that works overnight for a few hours, crunches the data, and then turns off. Ideally, if we start to put more information, more layers, we want to be able to parallelize that process and this could potentially be updated even every hour. So it's just a matter of how much can you scale if you have a cloud infrastructure, but on a medium workstation, which I think compares to the one we're using, it should do it easily every day, at least for the type of data that we use, which is probably the biggest, buildings and roads, compared to other features in the map.
I think we've got time for one more question before we start changing laptops. If there is one more question. No? Maybe.
All right.
Cool. I'll pass to Adrian to introduce the next speakers.
All right, thank you again.
Thank you, Cristiano.